On a quiet Sunday morning in January 2018, a frail teenage girl climbs through a window of her family's suburban California home and makes a desperate call to 911. She looks like she's about 10 years old, but she's actually 17, and she's about to expose one of the most disturbing cases of mistreatment in American history. Her father, David Turpin, a former engineer making $140,000 a year, knows exactly how to exploit California's homeschooling system. He simply files an affidavit with the state to register Sandcastle Day School, naming himself as principal. No inspections are required, no oversight is needed, no questions are asked. By designating his house as a private school, he creates the perfect cover to isolate his children from the outside world, keeping them away from teachers, doctors, or anyone who might notice signs of harm. David's plan works for decades. Behind closed doors, the children, 13 in total ranging from ages 2 to 29, are starved and chained. Their adult siblings are so malnourished they look like young children. While their parents treat the family dogs well and keep plenty of toys and food in the house, the children are only allowed one meal a day and one shower per year. What drove two seemingly normal people to imprison and abuse their own flesh and blood in such a horrific way? Join me as we dive into the twisted story of the Turpin family. David and Louise Turpin appear to be a normal couple living the American dream. David works as an engineer at major defense contractors Lockheed Martin and later Northrop Grumman, earning a comfortable salary of $140,000 per year. Louise stays at home as a full-time mother to their 13 children, who range in age from 2 to 29. The couple's story begins in West Virginia, where they meet at church. David is 23 years old and Louise is only 16 when they marry in Parisburg, Virginia in 1985. The couple identifies as Pentecostal Christians and believes God has called on them to have many children. Their early married life takes them to Fort Worth, Texas, where they live for 17 years. During this time, they begin growing their family, ultimately having 10 daughters and 3 sons. Their social media posts show a seemingly happy family taking trips to Disneyland and participating in other normal activities. In 2007, while still in Texas, David and Louise moved 10 of their children into an isolated trailer on their property. They take only their 2 youngest children with them, bringing groceries to the others weekly but not enough to feed everyone adequately. Financial troubles begin to mount for the family despite David's income. By 2011, they file for bankruptcy, listing debts between $100,000 and $500,000. This includes credit card debt and a foreclosed farm in Rio Vista, Texas, valued at $40,000. The family relocates to California in 2010, first settling in Murrieta before moving to their final home in Paris in 2014. The house appears normal from the outside, and neighbors describe it as unremarkable in their middle-class suburban neighborhood. Betty Turpin, David's mother, maintains that they are a highly respectable family. She tells media outlets that the children wear matching outfits for protective reasons, and that the parents line up their children by age when going out, with one parent at the front and one at the back of the line. The Turpins present themselves as a loving couple, renewing their wedding vows multiple times at an Elvis chapel in Las Vegas. Their children attend these ceremonies dressed in matching outfits, with the girls wearing identical purple plaid dresses and the boys in dark suits. Kent Ripley, the Elvis impersonator who performs their ceremonies, recalls the children as quiet but well-behaved. Louise's family members paint a different picture of isolation, however. Her sister attempts to maintain contact over the years, but says Louise shuts out all relatives. The family refuses to allow visits or even video calls with the children. While living in California, David establishes the Sandcastle Day School, registering their home as a private school with himself as principal. In California, registering a private school requires remarkably little oversight. David takes advantage of this loophole, enrolling between 5 to 9 students each year, all his own children, in grades 1 through 12. This registration requires only an annual affidavit with minimal information, and no outside oversight is required under California law. He doesn't have to submit assessments of the children's academic progress or show any evidence of homeschooling. The Turpin children rarely emerge from their suburban home. When neighbors do catch glimpses of them, they appear extremely pale, as if they never see sunlight. One neighbor reports they remind her of the vampire family from the Twilight series because they only seem to come out at night. Some neighbors notice strange activities through their windows. The children march in circles for hours in front of their upstairs windows at night. While this behavior strikes observers as odd, no one reports it to authorities. Neighbors later express regret at not investigating further or calling police. The family maintains a puzzling public image. Despite their apparent isolation, they take trips to Disneyland in nearby Anaheim. Photos show the children and parents wearing matching Disney-themed t-shirts during these outings. The family even has Disney-themed vanity plates on their cars reading DS Land and DL Forever, referring to their love for Disneyland. When neighbors attempt friendly interaction, the family responds with stark silence. In 2015, Kimberly Milligan compliments some of the older Turpin children as they set up Christmas decorations. She describes how they freeze in terror, seeming to retreat into themselves as if trying to become invisible. The family never puts up Christmas decorations again. Neighbor Andrea Valdez notices the children emerge occasionally to work on the lawn, but they always enter and exit the house together. She observes they appear malnourished and extremely skinny. Despite these concerning signs, no one in the community alerts authorities. The children never play outside in their backyard, a stark contrast to the other families in the neighborhood. While the exterior of the house maintains a normal appearance, matching the other homes in their middle-class community, the children remain hidden from view most of the time. The Turpins' social media presence portrays a happy, thriving family. Comments from friends and family on these posts praise how well-behaved the children appear, completely unaware of the reality behind closed doors. Inside the Turpin home, the children endure unimaginable abuse that spans decades. David and Louise Turpin chain their children to beds with heavy padlocks, often leaving them restrained for weeks or months at a time. The parents maintain strict control over food, allowing their children only one rationed meal per day. While the house contains plenty of food, including pumpkin pies and other treats, the children are forbidden from eating it. The parents even taunt them by placing food where they can see it but not touch it. The oldest 29-year-old daughter is only 82 pounds. Personal hygiene becomes another form of torture in the Turpin household. The children are permitted to shower just once per year. If they wash their hands above their wrists, their parents accuse them of playing with water and punish them. The children wake up each morning unable to breathe because of how filthy the house is. The Turpin parents also completely isolate their children from the outside world. The siblings are not allowed to watch television, talk on the phone, or have friends visit. They lack basic knowledge about the world, with some not even understanding what medication or police officers are. Their only permitted activity while confined to their rooms is writing in journals. The abuse also includes physical violence beyond the chains and starvation. The parents beat and strangle their children as punishment. When one victim manages to escape from being tied with ropes, David and Louise begin using chains and padlocks instead. The children are sometimes forced to stay up all night and sleep during the day. The Turpin parents employ psychological torture alongside physical abuse. They buy new toys but never allow the children to open them, instead forcing them to look at the unopened packages. While the family dogs appear well fed and cared for, the children continue to starve. Years later, the oldest daughter Jennifer, who had once attempted to escape, would recall a traumatic memory. When she was just 9 years old, she experienced a horrific incident that would forever alter her perception of safety and survival. After being caught taking food from the pantry, a basic human need, she was subjected to a punishment. Her mother placed her beloved cat outside and forced the young girl to watch as feral dogs brutally attacked it. The dogs ate the cat in front of her, tore it apart, and killed it. The message was clear: defiance would be met with unspeakable violence. Each act of resistance could result in devastating consequences, not just for herself, but potentially for those she loved. This would lead to her failed escape attempt years later. The children's education is virtually non-existent, despite the registered homeschool. The 17-year-old who escapes has only a first-grade level education. When one son attends some classes at a local college, Louise accompanies him, waiting outside the classroom and immediately taking him home afterward. Inside their rooms, the siblings sometimes cannot even use the bathroom due to their restraints. The stench in the house becomes so severe that neighbors can smell it from outside. The Turpin parents' reign of terror reaches its breaking point on January 14, 2018, when their 17-year-old daughter musters the courage to risk everything for her family's freedom. This time, the 17-year-old daughter, Jordan, has reached her limit. The abuse within the Turpin household hasn't always been visible to all the children, leaving each sibling potentially feeling isolated in their suffering. But everything changes when the parents brazenly chain up some of the younger siblings in front of her, forcing her to witness her more helpless siblings crying in fear. This moment becomes her turning point. Something shifts inside her, a protective instinct. Her older sister Jennifer, drawing from her own previous escape attempt, shares crucial knowledge about seeking help. Armed with this information, she prepares to act. In the early morning hours, she carefully escapes her room and obtains a deactivated cell phone hidden within the house. Then she climbs out through a window. Her sister attempts to flee with her but becomes frightened and retreats. Undeterred, Jordan continues her mission. Once outside, she calls 911, her voice steady and urgent. She tells the dispatcher a horrifying truth. Her 12 brothers and sisters are being held captive by their parents, with some of them literally chained to their beds. Her call will become the lifeline that finally breaks their imprisonment.
I just ran away from home because I live in a family of 15, okay? Can you hear me? And we have abusing parents. Did you hear that?
Okay, how did they abuse you?
Okay, they hit us, they throw us across the room. They pull our hair, they yank out our hair. I have my two little sisters right now are chained up.
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 17.
What's your name?
David Turpin.
Okay, I'm going to connect you to the service department so that they can help
What?
you. One moment, don't hang up.
I won't.
Interestingly, the psychological response of the two sisters reveals an intriguing pattern of survival and protection. Both Jennifer and Jordan were motivated not by personal safety, but by a concern for their loved one's well-being. Jennifer's initial reluctance to escape and Jordan's eventual intervention both stem from the same core protective instinct, a priority of safeguarding the more vulnerable family members over their own immediate interests. When police arrive to investigate the call, they meet with the escaped teen first. Though she is 17, she is so malnourished that officers initially mistake her for a 10-year-old child. She shows them photos she had taken inside the house that document the conditions.
I just ran away from home.
Okay.
And I live in a family of 15.
Okay.
My two little sisters right now are chained up.
They're chained up?
Yes,
Where are they chained up at?
on their bed. Now, Mother didn't chain them up just to be mean. Okay. They're chained up because they stole Mother's food.
Uh-huh.
But I'm sorry if I talk too much. Okay. I've never talked to anybody out there, so I've never been alone with a person, so this is very hard for me to talk. Okay.
Do your parents know you left your house?
No, they don't.
Do you take any medication?
What's medication?
Medication?
Yeah, what's medication?
Do you take pills? Do you take pills?
Oh, I don't think I've ever taken a pill before.
Okay.
Right, I haven't. Our parents are abusing. They abuse us. But the reason I called and the reason I managed to get out here, this is one of the most scariest things I've ever done.
Uh-huh.
I'm terrified. But I called because my two little sisters, they're chained up right now.
Do you have pictures of that?
Yes, I can show you. I actually didn't have it, and then one of my sisters told me I need to get pictures.
You have pictures of your sisters chained up?
Yes, but they're in here. Okay. I don't have proof of everything, but I have proof that my sisters are chained up then. See, those are the places that make it known then. And see how dirty she is? We are so filthy. We don't take baths. We don't.
How did your sisters get like this?
Okay.
Your parents chained them up?
Yes, because they stole food.
Okay.
But they stole it because they were hungry.
Who took this picture?
I did. I took those pictures.
Okay. You make sure to save these, okay?
Okay, I will.
Don't get rid of those.
I will.
Minutes later, when officers knock on the Turpins' door, Louise appears perplexed about why law enforcement is there. Inside the house, officers discover the horrific scene. Several children remain shackled to their beds, and David and Louise scramble to unchain some of them as police enter. The stench and filthy conditions overwhelm the responding officers, who immediately arrest both parents.
How many kids do you have?
13.
13 total?
Yeah.
Woo! You guys are busy.
Yeah.
You got another couple kiddos asleep there?
Yeah.
Sarge, you got another room in the front right here with 2 kiddos in the bed. Over here.
Okay. Deputy. Thank you. We're here to help you. Okay? Just work with my guys. We will help you guys. Okay?
The 13 Turpin siblings spend 2 months in hospitals following their rescue. Doctors treat various medical issues resulting from their abuse, including heart damage from malnutrition, cognitive impairments, and neuropathy. The medical staff form strong emotional bonds with the siblings during their recovery. Mark Uffer, CEO of Corona Regional Medical Center, where the adult siblings receive treatment, describes them as friendly and cooperative despite their trauma. He notes that when the siblings finally leave the hospital, there are tears from both the medical staff and the Turpins, who express love and gratitude to their caregivers. The community responds with an outpouring of support for the siblings. Donors contribute nearly $2 million for their medical expenses, living, and education. The Riverside County District Attorney's Office files 38 charges against David and Louise Turpin. The charges include multiple counts of torture, child abuse and neglect, false imprisonment, and abuse of a dependent adult. The charges cover crimes committed from 2010 to 2018 after the family moved to California. David faces an additional disturbing charge of performing a lewd act on a child by force. The prosecution provides no public details about this specific charge to protect the victim's privacy. Bail is set at $12 million for each parent. The parents initially plead not guilty to all charges in January 2018. Their attorney, David McCare, tells reporters outside the courtroom that his clients are presumed to be innocent, and the case will be tried in court rather than the media. The prosecution amasses overwhelming evidence against the couple. This includes hundreds of journals the children were allowed to keep while imprisoned, photographs from the 17-year-old's escape, and extensive medical documentation of the siblings' conditions. Louise's attorney requests she be placed in a pretrial diversion program for mental health treatment, citing a diagnosis of histrionic personality disorder. The judge denies this request, determining she poses too great a risk to the public. In February 2019, both parents changed their pleas to guilty. They each plead guilty to 1 count of torture, 3 counts of willful abuse, 4 counts of false imprisonment, and 6 counts of cruelty to an adult dependent. David also pleads guilty to 8 counts of perjury related to the affidavits he filed for their private school. The district attorney's office announces that given the number of charges and their severity, the Turpins could face up to 94 years in prison. The guilty pleas spare their children from having to testify about their ordeal in open court. District Attorney Mike Hestron describes the case as haunting, saying that in his career dealing with human depravity, this case stands out for its systematic torture of the defendant's own children. He notes that there are cases that stick with you and haunt you, and the Turpin case is one of them. In April 2019, David and Louise appear for their sentencing hearing. During the emotional proceedings, several of their children speak about their experiences and their path forward. One daughter declares she is taking her life back and describes how she's now attending college and living independently. During the sentencing, Louise weeps as she apologizes for hurting her children. David struggles to maintain his composure while reading a statement claiming he never intended to harm his children and expressing hope for their future. He states, "My homeschooling and discipline had good intentions. I'm sorry if I've done anything to cause them harm." The judge remains unmoved by their displays of remorse, however.
I want to say to you, Your Honor, and the court, I'm sorry for everything I've done to hurt my children. I love my children so much. I'm blessed to be the mother of each one of them. I only want the best for them. Their happiness is very important to me. They are very smart and amazing individuals. I hope they get all the education they need to make their dreams come true. They deserve only the best in life. I don't want any of them to be sad or depressed because of all of this. I want them to know that Mom and Dad are going to be okay. I also want them to know I believe God has a special plan for each of them. I'm going to ask my attorney to read my statement for me. All right.
Your Honor, I thank God for all of my children. Each one of them is a blessing from God. My homeschooling and discipline had good intentions. I never intended for any harm to come to my children. I'm sorry if I've done anything to cause them harm. I'm glad we were able to resolve this case without my children being forced to testify. I love my children, and I believe my children love me.
I am so proud of each and every one of my children. I miss all of my children, and I will be praying for them. I long for the opportunity to have contact with them again. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
The court sentences both parents to 25 years to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years when they will be in their 80s. Legal experts believe they will likely never receive parole due to the severity of their crimes, making their sentences effectively a life term. After sentencing, authorities transferred David to California State Prison, Corcoran, after a brief stay at Mill Creek State Prison. Louise begins serving her sentence at the Central California Women's Facility. They are barred from having any contact with their children. By early 2020, the Riverside County Deputy District Attorney reports that some of the siblings are living independently, working, and attending school. But that's not the case for all of the family members. Some older siblings are thrust into high-violence neighborhoods with minimal life skills, facing additional challenges from a public guardian seemingly indifferent to their needs. Joshua Turpin, now 29, recalled being repeatedly told to just Google it when seeking basic guidance about navigating daily life. Some siblings, including Jordan, continued to battle housing instability and hunger, despite nearly $2 million in donations collected for their support. The aftermath takes a dark turn when 6 of the younger children are placed with a harmful foster family in October 2019. Their new foster parents and their adult daughter allegedly hit them with sandals, pulled their hair, forced them to eat moldy food, and then they had to eat their own vomit. The 5-year-old is given sleeping pills and is forced to stand in a little taped square. If she starts to fall asleep, the foster parents spray her with a water bottle and ring a cowbell. If she goes down to the ground, they kick her. Then they pick her up and lock her in the bathroom and leave her in there until she settles down. Some of the children also state that the foster father was inappropriate with them on multiple occasions. It is heartbreaking to hear the children being moved from one abusive family to another. The system meant to protect them had failed once again. Yet the Turpin siblings demonstrate remarkable resilience. The youngest 4 children now live together in a foster home, finding happiness in their reunion. As Jordan poignantly shared, "Every time we're together, it's a very special moment because we always know at the end of the day, we're always going to have each other." The siblings still face ongoing challenges accessing the millions of dollars donated for their care. But there is support from activists like J.C. Dugard, who spent 18 years of her youth in captivity, and who establishes a foundation fund to support the Turpin siblings. In July 2022, several Turpin siblings filed lawsuits against the foster care system for gross negligence in placing them with a terrible family. It was only once one of the children was old enough to leave the foster family that they told a social worker. The foster parents were later arrested and charged with harming multiple children in their care. They pleaded guilty to the charges. In early October 2024, the 65-year-old foster father was finally sentenced. He received 7 years in prison while his 60-year-old wife and 39-year-old daughter, who partook in the harm, were each sentenced to 4 years of probation. Years after her harrowing childhood, Jennifer, the oldest sister who once witnessed such unimaginable cruelty, finds her own path to healing and happiness. On October 27, 2024, she celebrates her marriage and embraces a future filled with love, safety, and the promise of the family she chooses for herself. In the end, the Turpin case exposes alarming gaps in California's private school oversight system. Under state law, anyone can establish a private school by simply filing an affidavit with basic information about enrollment and staff. David Turpin exploited this loophole by registering Sandcastle Day School, naming himself as principal and administrator. California's Department of Education has no authority to monitor, inspect, or oversee private schools. The department spokesman Bill Ainsworth acknowledges they are sickened by this tragedy and notes that while private schools must register to record their students' exemption from public school attendance, the state lacks any power to evaluate these schools. The only required inspection for private schools in California comes from the state or local fire marshal. Yet officials from the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, the Riverside County Fire Department, and the Paris Fire Department have no record of ever inspecting the Turpin home. The lack of oversight means the Turpin children never interacted with mandatory reporters such as teachers, school nurses, or doctors who might notice signs of abuse. In a 2014 study at University of Wisconsin, pediatrician Barbara Knox found that 47% of the school-aged victims she examined were removed from school to be homeschooled. Another 29% were never enrolled in school. That means 76% of the children were isolated. The Coalition for Responsible Home Education tracks cases like these ones. Their database reveals nearly 400 cases of severe to fatal abuse of homeschooled children since 2000. Rachel Coleman, the organization's executive director, warns that children are currently being chained to beds in other homes due to insufficient oversight. California Assemblyman Jose Medina, representing the city of Paris, expresses extreme concern about the lack of oversight for private and home schools. He begins working on legislation to address these gaps after the Turpin case comes to light. Attempts at reform face significant opposition, however. The Homeschool Association of California argues that requiring home visits would violate constitutional rights and unfairly target homeschooling parents. The organization's legal team co-chair calls such proposals an outrageous suggestion that assumes all homeschooling parents are potentially abusive. Prior efforts to regulate homeschooling in California have failed. In 2008, a court ruling requiring homeschooling parents to obtain teaching credentials was reversed after 6 months due to backlash from the homeschool community. The state remains one of 15 that only require basic registration for homeschools. The Turpin case demonstrates how isolation enables abuse. Without regular contact with the outside world, the children have no opportunity to seek help or report their decades-long abuse.